Welcome back to Lost Legacies. I'm Matt.
And I'm Sam.
First off, I just realized I didn't tease this episode last time, Sam. So let me tell you, we're talking about season 2, episode 13, The Long Con. After Sun is brutally attacked, the survivors form a posse and attempt to gather the guns from the hatch. That's a weird sentence structure. And attempt to gather the guns from the hatch. The only problem? Sawyer. Yeah. Well, I guess I'm kind of glad that I didn't tease this episode for you then. So you had no idea what was coming.
Yeah, that's true. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. Well, I gotta say, first off, out of the several episodes we've been getting, this one was much better. It was still super dark, but this one was fun. This one had really smart writing. It was good, man. It was a good chapter.
Mm-hmm.
I think this might be like the best Sawyer flashback episode. Well,
I think so.
He's had some decent flashbacks, but it was always a thing where like it didn't really fit with what was happening on the island.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this one is really interesting because you're just really getting into like his psyche.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Did you know it was him?
Oh, like for the whole thing? No.
Mm-hmm.
No, it didn't. He conned me. I got conned.
Yeah. I remember not liking this episode when it came out years ago, but now watching it and knowing the two big twists in the episode, I had a blast. I had a blast like piecing it all together. I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
So flashbacks this time around. We got to see his old Sawyer back in his old con artist routine again. He did this exact same con on some lady in season 1, but this one calls him out on it. And she's like, oh, you're a con artist. Okay. But she's kind of into it. She's like, teach me to do what you do. And yeah, that's essentially the flashbacks in this episode is the two of them falling in love and conning people. And the big twist in the flashbacks was that this was all part of Sawyer's con. This part I had forgot completely.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I couldn't remember. I was like, I was wondering if she was conning him. I didn't remember.
Okay, yeah. I got that right too. I was like, oh, what if she is conning him? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But no, that's not how it turned out.
Not how it turned out at all. And I really like this because it really emphasizes who Sawyer is. He's actually falling for this woman, but still, it's in his blood, man. He's a con artist.
Mm-hmm.
He turns out this was the long con. So yeah, I mean, this was a really good look at like who Sawyer is as a person. That was cool. And the actress looked familiar. I don't remember. Do you recognize her?
She did look familiar, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and I feel like she was maybe in another episode.
Okay, after an exhaustive investigation into Lost, it turns out Cassidy was played by Kim Dickens. Kim Dickens was she's from Deadwood. She was the mom in Fear the Walking Dead. Apparently she's in one season, I think, of House of Cards. Final season of Sons of Anarchy.
Okay.
Varsity Blues. Man, yeah, she's done a lot.
Wow. That's really cool. Mm-hmm. Very storied career. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, she was great. And she was a nice little counter to Sawyer. So that was nice. And this you kind of need someone good to have this guy fall in love with, you know? Mm-hmm. I would have liked to see more of that, like, because it kind of just seemed like it was the heat of the moment. I'm with the bad boy, or we're doing crime together. That's why we fall in love. You know, it didn't there. Granted, it's 45-minute episode, and these are flashbacks, so we didn't really get into a lot of the more romantic side of it. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I did too. Mm-hmm. I did too. I thought it was, kind of the opposite of last week. Like these flashbacks were just very well executed and just like, yeah, it was. Well, I guess not the opposite of last week because we did like the flashbacks of Charlie's episode,
right? Yeah,
but I think like for the whole thing, this was kind of the opposite from the previous week, where it's like, oh, like this is a good episode. This is how you weave the flashbacks into the narrative of now. You know, this is how you can do like a kind of compelling character study, and it works with Sawyer because a lot of it is like, we are seeing everything from Sawyer's perspective, and yet we're still surprised by the outcome. You know, like that's really crafty. I really dug that, and we're surprised on both fronts because we don't, you know, at this point we're rooting for Sawyer. We've seen that he has some good in him. You know, there are people who are on the island who are willing to stick up for him. And then he goes and does this to us.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, yeah, he might have done some good. There's a whole lot of bad still inside this man.
I've said it before, like Sawyer always goes into like, oh, he's just misunderstood, or he's like the bad boy you love to love, that kind of thing. But every time they do that, something happens and Lost reminds you this is a bad guy. And this was one of those episodes. And you think they couldn't just keep doing that over and over, but they did. Like they escalated things with this one. So the on island story was essentially Jack goes and steals Sawyer's pills, which he took out of the hatch, which he had already had before. And that's been a back and forth between those two since the first episode, you know? And that kind of kicks off this whole chain of events. Meanwhile, Sun is like, it seems like an attempted kidnapping gone wrong, but she ends up, you know, beat up, and everyone starts freaking out. And it was interesting because last episode, they didn't mention this at all, but this episode, we come back to the idea of building an army, you know, Jack and Anna Lucia are trying to build an army. So now everyone's, you know, they're freaking out. They're nervous. They're scared. Jin is pissed. I'm trying to remember, what was the first episode or first scene in this episode? Locke and Jack. Yeah. That's how it starts. It's Locke and Jack putting all the guns in the gun cabinet or the gun closet. And it was such a good scene. And then Jack asked Locke for the combination. And it's just like a very cool little tense moment. Like, you know, is this a thing because you don't trust me or what? You know, I love those two together. I thought that was such a cool scene to start off the episode. And sure enough, this whole episode was about the guns. You know, the survivors, they want the guns. They want to protect themselves. Some want to go find the others. And basically, long story short, Sawyer concocted this whole plan to pit everyone like technically against the others, essentially. So he can get Locke to move the guns and then follow him and get the guns, essentially.
Yeah.
And the big reveal at the end is, you know, because he's pitting the survivors against the others, but he's also pitting Jack against Locke, which is great. But then the big reveal is that no, Sawyer all along. Big reveal as he shoots the rifle into the air. It's like, damn it, man! Those are essential bullets.
Yeah, and the thing is though is that like nobody knows that Sawyer concocted the whole plan. It's just us, you know. Yeah. So like it's crazy because now there's like this heightened level of fear, you know, amongst the survivors. But now they don't have access to their guns, you know, because Sawyer's sitting on top of all of them. So it's great because like cool, like Sawyer got to like rise up this episode, but I have a feeling that's just going to come back to bite everybody later.
But I love it too, because I guess in that scene, someone asked like, why are you doing this? And he says, because you took my stuff.
Yeah.
It's so petty. But like, yeah, like that's who this guy is, you know. He just wanted to get back at Jack so bad, and he did.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, man, it's perfect. Like it's in the title, The Long Con. This was a well-made con. And I thought the writing was great. It was perfect because like I never saw it coming. You know, that first time I was like, oh crap. But then at the very, very end, well, before we get to that, Sawyer has that great scene with Kate where she's pissed because he's been using Kate through the whole episode. He's been telling her a little information, a little this, because he already knows what she's gonna do. Oh, she's gonna run and tell Jack this. You know, oh, he knows that Kate's gonna ask him to go tell Locke this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is what makes this character so cool. Because Kate's a badass. You know, she murdered a guy. Now she's on the run. She's the criminal. She likes using people. But Sawyer's super smart. He's super intelligent. And it's really interesting because, like, yeah, he's the redneck. He's the hick con artist, you know. And actually, most of them probably don't even know he's a con artist.
Yeah.
You know, they just think he's a jerk. But yeah, the way he outplays them all, like, I love it. But then Kate asked him, like, well, what about Sun? Did you do that to her? And he's like, what kind of guy? Who do you, I don't know, what kind of monster do you think I am? Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, okay, apparently we have lines now, James. And then that leads us to the end of the episode when it's revealed Charlie was working with him the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And Charlie's the one who attacks Sun. And when Sawyer offers him the Virgin Mary statues with drugs, Charlie says, no, that's not why I did it. He wanted Locke to look like a fool.
Mm-hmm.
And so twisted, dude. I love it. In a way, it's kind of like the cliquey mentality we've been talking about, like with arts, you know, saying, I know how this works.
Yeah.
It's kind of that coming back to bite everyone in the ass, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Jack's in charge, but he can't just do what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Locke. And because then shit like this happens, you know, you piss off the people you're supposed to be taking care of, protecting for the greater good or whatever. And it's really ends up hurting people and it comes back and hurts you in the end. And yeah. I'm trying to think what else happened.
Well, I mean, we did get like a little like C plot with Saeed and Hurley.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about that. That was fun.
Yeah, because Hurley shows up and is talking to Saeed, and Saeed's just like shucking coconuts.
I guess, yeah.
I don't know what the hell he's doing. He's just got a big spike in the ground.
He's grieving, Sam. He's in mourning.
He's processing. I understand.
Yeah.
I understand that. But yeah, he's just like he's not in the mood. He doesn't want to hear it. Hurley comes up to him talking about Bernard and how Bernard had a shortwave radio. And so he just looks at it and he's just like, it's a glorified walkie-talkie. It doesn't do anything. All I'm going to hear is the French woman's signal. Like, it's a waste of time. And he essentially just like blows off Hurley, and Hurley's like, hey, it's okay. Sorry. No problem, dude. He walks away, and Saeed kind of like, he even has a look like he feels bad. He's like, he turns around, and Hurley's not there. He's walked away, but he left the radio. And that just like, and that was pretty early in the episode.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't come back into play again until pretty much the end, like almost the end, where Hurley, let's talk about Hurley for a second. Hurley found a manuscript and he's reading it by firelight. A manuscript from a mystery novel called Bad Twin.
Yes. You remember this novel?
I do remember this novel.
Yeah.
This was like a novel published in conjunction with Lost, right? This was part of like the official Lost book club or something like that. So it's a novel that takes place well, I don't know when it takes place, but it's essentially like the novel, it exists in the Lost universe.
Yeah, yeah, it was weird because I mean, I think the novel got published after season 2, and it's in the Lost universe. So I think there's even like a editor's note in the beginning that I think his name is Gary Trope or Gary Troop, something like that. The author, he had just finished a manuscript when he was on Oceanic Flight 815, went missing. So they got the last manuscript and they published it. I was really hoping for like some hints or clues, but they don't really mention it. However, it's a noir, it's a mystery. I don't remember the plot. I know, detective woman comes in and giving the detective a job. I believe she betrays him at some point, like noirs do. But I do know that there was a part of it that had to deal with the Hanzo Foundation. And if we remember, Hanzo is the guy they talk about in the orientation film.
Yeah, he's like
the mysterious guy we never see. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like funding the Dharma Initiative.
Yeah. So like we don't meet him or anything, but in the novel, like it's a setting, like the person who was killed worked at the Hanzo Foundation, something like that. And that was about it. Like there wasn't really any other connections. It was just kind of a cool tie-in. But like now, I think it might have even been during the show. I don't think it's not mentioned in the show, but it's kind of become canon that the author Gary Trope, he's the guy in the pilot who gets sucked into the plane engine.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So they've made that canon. That's the guy who wrote this manuscript.
Oh no.
So R.I.P.
Come on, Gary. That's pretty cool. See, like in this is what intrigues me about Lost, and I think gets lost on a lot of people. See, like I'm hearing more and more people, like people younger than us, like talking about things that like we were alive for and like that we remember, and things that like had a huge cultural impact, like seismic shift cultural impact. Like the Blair Witch, like the Blair Witch Project comes out and it like changes filmmaking, it changes horror movies, it's like, whoa, like this is incredible. It changes how movies are marketed. I don't think we get the marketing for Lost without the Blair Witch.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because it's marketed as this real thing. It's so minor. It's so low key. There's the site that you could go to that you can do it because they're like, this is real. This is a real thing.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, whoa. And obviously we know that it's not real, but like, that's just on the level that the marketing was.
And when Blair Witch came out, like everyone was like, is this like legit for real?
Yeah.
Because it had never been done before.
Yeah.
Found footage films. That was like it. And we're like, wait, is this for real? Like it was on the news. They were having to tell people this is a fictional film. Yeah. Because it had never been done before. So we never even considered like, oh, wow, someone purposely had a production and made this movie look this way.
Exactly.
So they had to explain that to us like, oh, okay. Exactly. So you have all these people flocking out to Blair Witch Forest and,
Yeah. Yeah. So like and we remember that, like we were still pretty young, but like we remember that, and like we grew up in that era where it's like we saw the shift of.
And that's the perfect age too, man, because we're so influenced. We still are, but at that age, you're just you want that content that like your parents don't want you to see. You really want to go see those rated R movies. You can take it, but you're I don't know. Maybe we were 13. I don't even remember when that was. Maybe I was in middle school. Maybe
I think that may have been 99. It was 99, 98.
Oh man, yeah. So I was like,
it was early
middle school or late elementary. 99.
So
yeah, man.
So there's that, but then now there are people that are younger than us that like they don't remember that, and then when they go watch Blair Witch, they're like, oh, okay.
Like, because
I didn't like it,
Yeah, it's because they don't see the context, and they can't. It's impossible. No matter, even if we somehow fabricated all the everything to fit, it still won't, because they grew up in a world where found footage movies were a thing. You know, so as much as they try, they can't replicate that feeling. You know,
so that's kind of a thing that I have to remember when I'm watching the show, because we can get some episodes like the one last week where it's like, yep, that's a Lost episode. And then we get to this week and I'm like, this is a fucking Lost episode. This is it, man. Like, I get it. I get why it was a global phenomenon. And then it takes a small moment of one character reading the manuscript of a book, and I see the words bad twin together, and I'm like, oh yeah. And suddenly my synapses are firing and I'm transported back to when this was airing. And I remember you talking about bad twin, and I remember you going to get the book. I remember you had the book. I remember holding it in my hand and being like, this is wild. This is crazy. I don't understand it, you know, but it's like, whoa, like that's crazy. And I think that's one of the things that, like, people now, you know, like going back to watch Lost, like that's also a thing too, where it's like, you know, everybody kind of exists now in the time where like Game of Thrones was the global phenomenon, but I still feel like they didn't have the same reach that Lost did. You know, because Lost was here doing all this stuff. Like, Lost had books that were made set within the universe of Lost. You know, did they have anything to do with the plot? No, probably not.
Right.
You know, but like they had this thing made, you know?
Yeah. And like part of it though is that like anything interactive with Game of Thrones is going to be meta just because it's fantasy. It's not a real world. Whereas Lost, it could be, you know, this could be a real world. And that's because that's the thing, because you're talking about, okay, they made this book and all this stuff and they're doing all this stuff. It eventually became known as the Lost Experience, which is, I want to say it was after season 2 that it really kicked off in full force. But like this too, okay, the manuscript of Bad Twin was revealed in this episode, but nothing happened. Like, it was nothing.
Oh yeah.
You know, but it became something. And that's what's crazy. You know, so when this episode aired, you didn't have all these people like, oh, that's a novel. No, because it was literally nothing. It was made for this. But as the show went on and then it came out, they're like, oh yeah, that's that one book that was in the show. And also Sawyer's been seen reading several things throughout the series so far. Every time a book would show up in Lost, sales would go up. You know, Watership Down. Oh man, everyone's ordering Watership Down. You know, I've never seen anything like that. And actually 2006, that was the first year I worked in a bookstore. So yeah, it was season 2. So I've been able to see that, you know, from the sales perspective. The only other thing we have got in history, or like in recent history, that reminds me of that was True Detective, because they talk about, I think it was called the Yellow King,
the King in Yellow,
which I still not sure what it is, because I love True Detective. I never really found that book or anything, but sales were crazy. Like, it wasn't really popular or in print. So like everyone sold out. Well, one, no one had it. So they all had to get it and find it in some warehouse somewhere. They sold out like instantly. So they had to go reprint more. But that's really it. Game of Thrones is like, well, let me find the book series, you know?
Yeah.
Watership Down. Okay, let's go read Watership Down. But why? Why is this book in this series? And that's what really started off the Lost Experience. You know, why did the authors go out of their way to put this reference in here? And that kind of, it's a crazy conspiracy theory mindset, but sensible and not too crazy. It's more of the adventurous, like geocaching / like globe trekking type of side, you know. It's it's that side of it. Yeah, it's like a giant scavenger hunt. Everyone's just scouring the internet of 2004, 5, and 6, just back then, just trying to find out any little clues they could.
Mm-hmm.
And we started this conversation because of Hurley, and we're going to finish this conversation because of this exact same scene we're talking about, which just threw logs onto the fire of what I'm talking about. Because what happens next?
Saeed walks up to Hurley, and Saeed has one of the giant antenna things connected to the walkie-talkie.
Mm-hmm.
He gives Hurley the walkie-talkie. He goes, like, he plants the thing, and then they sit down together, and Saeed starts turning the dial, and like, okay, there's static. That's not good. Okay, there's Russo's message. Okay, we knew that was coming. And then he keeps doing it, and then all of a sudden it stops. They hear music. Like, wait, what? And then the music stops, and they hear somebody talking about music. And the first clear words that they hear is Duke Ellington Orchestra.
Mm-hmm.
And next up is such and such playing Moonlight Serenade.
Such and such. That's Glenn Miller, my friend.
That's right. I'm sorry. Just Glenn Miller's Moonlight Serenade. And then Moonlight Serenade starts playing, and we get a moment where we get like a couple of seconds, some good couple of seconds where Saeed and Hurley just like stare off, mystified.
Mm-hmm.
That they're listening to music again.
Mm-hmm.
And Hurley's like, oh, dude, like, that means it's got to be close, right? Do you hear how clear that is? It's got to be close. And then Saeed kind of has to be the curmudgeon and says, like, we're picking up waves that are bouncing off the ionosphere. Like, this could be coming from anywhere. This could be 1,000 miles away. It could be anywhere. And Hurley says, or anytime. A joke, dude.
Yes, I just looked at him. Oh my god! When he said that in the series, like when I watched it last night, I almost screamed. It was like, oh my god, because up until this point, everyone was like, oh, they're all in purgatory, they're all dead, blah blah blah. But after Hurley said that, everyone's like, is this time travel? Are they traveling through time? Like the whole Lost fandom just flipped on a switch, and they're like, okay, time travel. If there's time travel happening, how is this affecting the show? And it was just bonkers, dude. Oh, what a time to be alive, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I love it. And I think the writers they're screwing with us. You know, they're like, hey, let's just throw this line in there.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's,
and that's fun. That's screwing with your audience in a fun way. I love that.
Yeah. It's not something that's like, oh, we're gonna plant this thing here and then it pays off, but in a different way, or like it never pays off or anything like that. Like this is something different. Like this was kind of just them like ribbing us and being like, hey, what if we did that? It's like, oh yeah,
the way you would do it, like if you're a jerk or if you don't know what you're doing, is you would have like these characters who are antagonistic to each other, slowly start working together, become friends, obviously start falling in love with each other. And then it just ends in utter tragedy and you break the hearts of all your fans everywhere. Hashtag Blark for life. That's to all my 100 fans out there. I was so against Clark and Bellamy being a couple for 4 or 5 years. But then once you got into those later seasons, I'm like, dude, you can't deny it. You can't deny it. They're in love with each other. The actors were in love in real life. So I think that played a major part. Like, you can't deny these two are in love. Like, it's horrific amateur writing if they don't end up together. Like, it does not make sense.
I just want you to know, Matt. I checked the numbers just now. We lost all of our listeners.
Oh, damn it.
They are not Blarkers. Every single person who listens to us are not Blarkers, and you just cost us the entire Lost Legacies fan.
What episode is this? Season 2, episode 12? No, episode 13.
13. Oh, it's fitting because it's episode 13 and we're recording this on Friday the 13th.
We're recording this on Friday 13th. So we got
thanks a lot, Matt.
We got four seasons, 4.5 seasons to go. Just you wait till we start watching the 100.
Oh God.
Boy.
We're gonna be close to 40 by the time we get there.
I know. No, that would be a fun podcast to do because this we can have fun with. I think the 100 would bring up a lot of emotions, good and bad.
Ooh, yeah,
I feel like we would be much more professional about it because it's a show where we would actually do a lot of critiquing. Not saying that we're not professional, but like this is a show we love. Even if there's episodes we don't like, we're having fun. The 100 was very fun, but I think you would see, listeners, you would hear the more like film critic Matt and Sam, which only really comes out when we're being critical.
Yeah. Like anytime we've gone on our Game of Thrones rants, like that's, I think that's
last time we had our
we
Suicide Squad rant. That doesn't compare to our Game of Thrones rant. In episode 1, Sam went off. Well, I think we both went off for like 30 minutes, and we had to just cut the whole thing out.
Was that episode 1?
Dude, yeah, it was. I want to say it was episode 1.
Oh,
it was like a 90-minute episode, and I'm like, we can't do this.
Yeah. That series does things to me and did things to me, and
or did the bad show touch you? My heart.
My freaking heart.
My heart.
Then it ripped it and told me to be grateful that I even had that they were even doing this to me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
First they took Klexa, then they took Blark. I'm still talking about the 100.
Oh, okay. I was talking about Game of Thrones.
Just wait to
anyway. This is a podcast about Lost.
It is for now. I do want you to watch the 100 eventually, and I do think you would have more fun with the Magicians than the 100. So
probably. So I guess I want to end talking about the episode on this. I thoroughly enjoyed probably every second of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this was really interesting because I think they kind of just took the idea of a long con itself and just like, hey, like, what is that? Okay, let's just apply that to Sawyer's whole episode, like Sawyer's whole deal.
Sawyer's flashback and Sawyer in the main timeline.
Exactly. So it's like,
and
like
on the audience.
Yeah, and on the audience. So it's like this was kind of, I don't know, it might be pretentious, I don't know, but like this was kind of a masterclass in how to make a TV episode. Not just a Lost episode, but like this is like your themes are showing through. Like you had a thesis, like you had a thing that you wanted to talk about. Like we're going to talk about trust this episode and how we're going to explore and possibly destroy every single level of trust that we've already established, that it's taken us this long to get through. We're going to break every single one of those. And they did it and it worked. And this is the kind of thing that like, that gets to me when, sometimes, I'm telling people like, oh yeah, I do a Lost podcast with my brother and we're watching Lost. And people are like, oh, that show sucked. I'm like, I mean, look, it's objective, like, sure, like you didn't like it. You didn't like it. It's not my job to try and convince you, but I really like it. And it's episodes like this that gets me like, man, I care about the island. I want to know why Dharma is tattooing sharks.
Yeah.
But that's not why I'm here. At the end of the day, it's like, I want to watch these people. Like, I want to see these people. Like, I want to know what they're going through. One, I want to know if they get off the island. That's my main concern. But two, it's like, how different are these people going to be by the end? When they started off on that crash beach all the way until, I don't know, they get rescued by helicopters or something. Like, I want to know. I want to see that change. That's the driving force for me. So it's episodes like this that are like mind blowing.
Yeah. They're sheeple, man. People that just stick to the flock. What I mean by that is like it's fine to have different opinions than each other, but you got to be willing to defend it. Like, well, why do you feel that way? Why didn't you like the end of Lost?
Yeah.
Now granted, we'll get there eventually, and I'm really curious what you think about it. I'm really nervous about what I think about it, because I don't know if I'll like it as much. This rewatch is surprising me. Like, I'm enjoying things I didn't like about the show, but then I'm also disliking some of the things I liked about it back then. So I'm excited, but a little scared to get to that final season. But at the same time, I think it's also the big popular thing at the time. Like, oh man, we're just gonna bash this show. Let's all just have fun and do it, because we didn't, get the exact ending we wanted. We didn't get all this answered or whatever. So that's why I say it's sheeple, because they just jump on. I'm like, okay, why? Why didn't you like it? In the words of Damon Lindelof, everyone who didn't like the ending of Lost stopped liking Lost years before the ending. And I'm like, yeah, because I honestly, the way I remember it, the ending perfectly fit this show, and they had been building to it. So we'll find out. This episode was written by I just lost it. 2 writers who were only on this show for season 2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think one of them was on season 1 and 2, but it was directed by Roxanne Dawson, who was our very one and only B'Elanna Torres in Star Trek Voyager.
Hey,
our engineer.
Well,
she reversed the polarity and she started directing Lost.
Hell yeah. See, this is going to be a reference to something that I said earlier at work that nobody else was privy to except my brother. So he's the only one that's going to get it. But once again, Matthew, all roads lead to Star Trek.
Yes, it's true. Talk about transformative television. Yeah. Star Trek, the original series. And then I'll say next gen. I feel like Deep Space Nine, it was good, but like Deep Space Nine its popularity has gotten better through the years. As we've aged as a society and stuff, we're like, wow, this show is really ahead of its time. Whereas Next Gen was like, oh, it's just more Star Trek, and like, look at everything we're talking about and all the topics we're touching on. But then of course it's the OG Star Trek. They're like, that's why, we're in space and stuff. Yeah. That's why we have iPads. That's why we're doing this podcast on Zoom. Yeah. Thanks, Spock. What's other transformative television? You have Star Trek. I say MASH was a good one.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Buffy. I think Buffy like really captured that 90s like pop culture.
So, MVPs.
Yes,
Matthew, who are your MVPs this week?
I'll go with the easy one. I'm going to say Josh Holloway.
Yeah.
That's it.
I can agree with that.
Yep. I got nothing to back it up with. I just really dug it. Great performance. His best flashbacks episodes he's had so far. It's fun to see him play the fun Sawyer, and it's always nice to see him dip back into bad guy Sawyer.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to back you up and say almost verbatim that. So yeah, there you go. Our MVP.
Your turn. MVP.
Oh yeah, Josh Holloway.
That's it. Just him. Just one.
Yeah.
I'm going to say the writers. It's very rare that we say add the writers to this list, but I think this is one, like you said, like this could have easily been a Charlie episode like last week's.
That's true.
It totally just went off the rails. But the way they pulled this off, they pulled the long con on the audience. Loved it.
That's true.
And those guys were only around for season 2, so I'll give them a little love.
All right. Those writers who were only around for season 2, you got a little love from the Lost podcast.
Hire us. Okay, so predictions.
I don't know, man. This is tough.
Can I mention something real quick?
Sure.
I had forgot about this, but I'm scrolling through my notes and I wrote this down. Vincent. Vincent shows up right before Sun gets taken.
Mhm.
Was he in on it?
I think Vincent was a good boy in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I don't know. I think this is some character, I wouldn't say growth, but development. His boy's gone. His dad's gone. His
Mm.
babysitter's dead.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I think Vincent is he's trying to defect to the others,
Mhm.
or he's trying to outlast everyone else. He's like, okay, the others won't come for me if you have like 40 survivors in front of me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. I think Vincent doesn't give a hoot.
Yeah.
Vincent is playing his own long con. Yeah. He doesn't care about the others. He doesn't care about the survivors. I think at some point he won't even care about Michael or Walt. That's my prediction. Vincent is going to be behind it all.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't know it yet.
Mm-hmm. Get paused.
No.
Anyway. No. Although I highly approve of puns. In fact, the more you have, the more I accept you into my life. But that was not a pun. It was just two words I combined into one.
Yep.
Into pun. Again, not a pun. Just two words I combined.
God. All right. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Real. That's REEL Texas Weirdo.
This is what happens when we have to record after a long day of work. Don't find me. Don't find me on Instagram at Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch. And certainly don't find me at Twitter at _ Matt Jimenez or hashtag Lost Legacies, where you cannot find either of us.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, next time we're talking about, let's not forget this one. Season 2, episode 14. One of them. The survival. Oh, God, talk about being tired. Listen to this little teaser I got for you, Sam.
Uh-oh. Okay.
The survivors find themselves face to face with a familiar face, and they've brought another face.
Well, okay.
Only on Lost.
Check your local listings.
All right. So until next time, people, we love you. We miss you. We'll see you next time. Get lost.
Get lost.